Hi, I'm Adam, and in this video I'm going to give you a quick overview of the grammar of Finnish. And I'm not going to go into any details or specific constructions here, but rather focus on the whole picture, to give you a general understanding of how Finnish grammar functions on a greater level, as well as what to expect and what to look out for when studying further. First of all, we need to talk about two important phonological features that have far-reaching implications for the grammar: vowel harmony and consonant gradation. Vowel harmony is the concept that not all vowels can occur together in the same word. Finnish has 8 vowels in total, and we can divide them into 3 different groups depending on how they're made: front, back, and neutral. In the Finnish vowel harmony system, front and back vowels can never occur together in the same word, while neutral vowels can coexist with any other group. This can be seen in words like pöytä, silmä, kuva, and ero. And this has a huge effect on grammar, because since front and back vowels cannot occur in the same word, that means that any endings using either of them has to alternate its vowel depending on the kind of vowels that are already in the main word. For example, in the verbs syödä and juoda, meaning to eat and to drink respectively, the vowel of the infinitive ending is different since the vowels of the two words belong to different groups. And this pattern is literally everywhere. Another example is tulevaisuus, meaning future, and säästäväisyys, meaning thrift. At a closer look, you can see that more than half of these words consist of the exact same endings, but with back vowels in one and front vowels in the other. The only time vowel harmony does not appear is in loan words such as miljonääri or analyysi, or in compound words such as ruokapöytä and syyskuu, where the original parts do follow the harmony patterns. Now, as for consonant gradation, this is the term for a regular and very important alternation in the consonants of a word. Not all consonants are subject to gradation, but many are and follow patterns such as these ones. As a rule of thumb, consonants change when they're in a syllable that ends in another consonant, and so the words käpy, joki, sukka, and silta are all unchanged because they end in a vowel, but their plural forms, kävyt, joet, sukat, and sillat, have all been subject to gradation, since the syllables they belong to now end in a consonant. And this is something to watch out for, as it occurs not only at the end of words, but really anywhere where there is a changing syllable boundary. For example, we have the verb näyttää, meaning to show. From this, we can make the new verb näytellä, meaning to act, and as you see, we now get gradation, since the middle syllable is now closed with a consonant. But if we then want to conjugate it and say she acts, the form is hän näyttelee without gradation. This is because since the second L belongs to the infinitive and is no longer present, the middle syllable opens up and ends in a vowel again, thus revealing the original double T. Gradation can also go in the opposite direction than expected. For example, king is kuningas, but kings is kuninkaat. Since the singular form ends in a closing S, this causes gradation, which is then undone by the plural form, whose double vowel serves to open up the syllable. Another sneaky example is how many words show gradation without any apparent closing consonants at all. This is visible in, for example, hylje, meaning seal, and in the imperative form anna, meaning give, whose corresponding plural and infinitive forms are hylkeet and antaa, respectively. In cases like these, the gradation is a remnant of a historical final consonant, and although not written down, in many ways this hidden consonant is actually still present, but we'll have to save that for another video. Okay, so structure-wise, Finnish is a so-called agglutinative language. Like the name suggests, this means that it tends to want to glue meaningful items together and form long words with a lot of built-in information. An example of this is the sentence katsotko venettämmekin, which in English means something like, will you look at our boat too? English is an analytic language and tends to prefer giving each word a single meaning, as in this sentence here. Finnish instead stacks endings containing the same information, which leads to this slightly more compact look. But even though many speakers of Western languages have been taught to be afraid of endings and this kind of grammar, it's not really a huge difference from what you're used to. If you translate katsotko venettämmekin into the pseudo-English, look you will boated too, you get a fairly accurate picture of how Finnish works. The trick is to not get afraid of the mere length of words, but to be aware of how to split them up. For example, if you see this word, meaning unsystematicity, it might be tempting to just keep your mouth shut, But if you dissect it, you'll see that it has the exact same kind of components as its English counterpart. And in fact, even the core part is divisible into more recognizable endings. And just like in English, once you recognize the various parts, puzzling them together goes by itself, and saying epäjärjestelmällisyys is no longer a problem. Now, let's look at some significant features of Finnish grammar. First off, Finnish completely lacks both articles and any kind of grammatical gender distinction. This means that a word like koira can mean both a dog and the dog, and the word hän means both he and she. These features often seem quite significant to speakers of languages that have them, but Finnish does just fine without them and can convey the same meaning through other means, as you'll soon see. Okay, next up, case. Depending on how you count, Finnish has about 15 cases, covering a wide range of functions. For a European language, this many cases is unusual and definitely contributes to the exoticness of Finnish. But unlike what many people believe, a large amount of cases is not what makes a language difficult, and most of the cases in Finnish are in fact quite transparent and directly correspond to a preposition in English. For example, we have the genitive koiran, meaning of a dog, the ablative koiralta, meaning from a dog, the allative koiralle, meaning to a dog, and the essive koirana, meaning as a dog. Some cases are also quite rare and usually replaced by a different construction. This is the case, for example, with the abusive koiratta, meaning without a dog, which is more commonly expressed as ilman koira, using a preposition with the same meaning. But of course, some cases are quite odd to a speaker of Western languages, so let's look closer at those instead. We have the partitive case, which denotes undefined quantities of something, as in the sentence juon kahvia, meaning I'm drinking coffee, or järvessä on vettä, meaning there's water in the lake. We also have the translative case, which somewhat simplified denotes a change of state or otherwise points out a state or property, as in the sentence olet tullut hulluksi, meaning you've gone mad, or kirja on kirjoitettu suomeksi, meaning the book is written in Finnish. Another very unusual use of case in Finnish leads us to the next concept, telicity. For the more linguistically well-oriented, telicity is very similar to perfectivity, but not identical to it. Simply stated, the direct object in Finnish takes either the accusative or the partitive case, depending on whether the sentence is telic or atelic, which essentially means whether the action is brought to its natural end or not. For example, we have the English sentence, I ate an apple. With the telic accusative, this is söin omenan, and means that I ate the apple up. With the atelic partitive, it's söin omenaa, and means that I was eating an apple but did not finish it. Likewise, ammuit hirven with the accusative means you shot the moose, and the poor moose is now dead. Ammuit hirveä with the partitive also means you shot the moose, or perhaps better, you shot at the moose, because either you missed or the poor moose is now wounded. In any case, it's not dead. And as you may have noticed already, this feature allows us to give extra nuances that in English would be expressed by the verb. For example, söin omenan would be more likely to be interpreted as I ate an apple, since the action is now completed, whereas söin omenaa would rather be interpreted as I was eating an apple, since it's no longer relevant whether I ate it up or not. Likewise, a contextless sentence, such as ostan paitaa, would be translated as I'm buying a shirt, since it's an ongoing process. The equivalent, ostan paidan, would instead be translated as the future tense I'm going to buy a shirt, since the accusative case instead indicates the completion of the action. Another thing that Finnish uses to create distinctions that are otherwise not marked is word order. Like English, the neutral word order in Finnish is subject, verb, object, as in hän näkee koiran, he sees a dog. But since Finnish uses cases to mark the syntactic function of a word, the order can be freer than in English, and Finnish often moves words around to give them a special focus. For example, kadulla on auto means there's a car in the street. If we turn it around, auto on kadulla, it instead means the car is in the street, since by moving auto to the front, it gets a new kind of focus in the sentence, which in English tends to correspond to the definite article. but as you remember, Finnish doesn't bother with this, and gets the same message across by using constructions such as the one here. As for other features of word order, the genitive always precedes the noun that it modifies, as in koiran ruoka, meaning the dog's food, or talon katto, meaning the roof of the house. Adjectives also go before the noun that they modify, as in vihreä lehti, meaning a green leaf, and always sync the case and number form with their noun, as in vihreät lehdet, meaning the green leaves, or vihreässä lehdessä, meaning inside a green leaf. Another nominal feature is possessive suffixes. A dog is koira, my dog is koirani, and your dog is koirasi. This is also quite exotic, but Finnish does also have possessive pronouns that are often used combined with the suffixes, as in hänen koiransa, meaning his or her dog. In colloquial Finnish, the suffixes are often dropped altogether, and people just say mun koira and sen koira for my and his or her dog respectively, also using slightly different forms of the pronouns, as I'll get back to in a bit. A final thing with regards to nouns are prepositions, or should I perhaps say postpositions. In fact, Finnish has both, although postpositions are more common. And so we have, for example, ilman taloa, meaning without the house, but taloa vastaan, meaning towards the house, and talon alla, meaning under the house. As for the verbs, Finnish has special endings for every person, just like Spanish or Russian. Here's the verb tietä, meaning to know, conjugated for every person in the present tense. And because of these endings, Finnish doesn't need to use pronouns in the same way as English, but can often drop them, and for example just say tiedän instead of minä tiedän, since the person is already implied by the ending n. A peculiarity in the verbal system is the existence of a negative verb. It so happens that Finnish doesn't have a word for not, but uses a special auxiliary verb instead. It might sound exotic, but it's actually quite similar to English, where you usually say I don't know instead of the nowadays rather old-fashioned I know not. And so in Finnish, I know is tiedän, and I don't know is en tiedä. Likewise, you don't know and he/she doesn't know are et tiedä and ei tiedä respectively. And looking at the endings, it's clear how the negative verb ei is conjugated almost exactly like the regular verb tietä. Another special feature of the Finnish verbal system is the ability to form compact forms that in English would be equivalent to an entire clause, which is done by using special infinitive and participle forms together with various case endings and possessive suffixes. For example, the sentence sanot meneväsi kotiin means you say that you're going home, where meneväsi corresponds to the English that you are going. Likewise, ostamamme asunto oli Helsingissä means the apartment that we bought was in Helsinki, and here ostamamme corresponds to the English that we bought. And in the sentence ajaessani Turkuun näin sen, meaning I saw it when I was driving to Turku, the word ajaessani corresponds to the English when I was driving. To get a better understanding of how this actually functions, we can translate them more literally and get pseudo-English versions such as you told of your going home, the bought by us apartment was in Helsinki, and in my driving to Turku I saw it. These constructions are plentiful in the Finnish written language, although not as common in the spoken language, and generally they can be replaced with more quote-unquote normal clauses, as in sanot että menet kotiin, which has a more recognizable sentence structure for other Europeans. Lastly, let's talk about particles. Finnish is a big fan of enclitic particles, which are attached to various words to give additional information to the sentence in question. The most common particle is doubtlessly the question particle ko, which is attached to the verb in a yes or no question. So from the statement olen täällä, meaning I am here, we form the question olenko täällä, am I here? Other common particles include pa and kin, where the former expresses emphasis and the latter means also, as in the sentences onpa tämä vaikeaa, meaning this is really difficult, and sinäkin tulet juhliin, meaning you too are coming to the party. Also, before we round off, I think it's necessary to point out that this introduction mainly concerns the Finnish written language. Naturally, all languages have a gap between the written and spoken languages, but in Finnish, the differences tend to be quite considerable, and Finnish speakers often use the spoken language in writing as well. As an example of how the written and spoken languages can differ, let's take the sentence, tiedän, etteivät he ole tulossa luoksemme, mutta sinun olisi pitänyt kertoa minulle, which in the colloquial spoken language would be, mä tiedän, ettei ne ole tulos meidän luokse, mut sun olisi pitänyt kertoa mulle. As you see, not only are several words shortened or altered, but there are important grammatical differences as well, but the details of this will have to wait to another time. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the presentation and that you've gained new understandings of how the Finnish language functions. Stay tuned for more videos on Finnish and for introductions to other languages. Thank you for watching.